Good evening and welcome to the Village Board meeting for the Village of Pleasantville. Today is Monday, October 26th. If you're watching live on Monday, October 26th, we encourage you to call in if you have comments or questions. Our call-in number is 769-1677. As always, you can watch live on Cablevision or Verizon Cable TV, on the web at pctv76.org, and within a few days, you can pick up an on-demand webcast of this, as well as previous meetings, also at pctv76.org. Our next regular meeting is in 2 weeks on Monday, November 9 at 8 p.m. with a work session at 7. And then the following day, Tuesday, November 10, we have a scheduled joint meeting between the Village Board and the Board of the Pleasantville School District, and that will be at Pleasantville High School on Tuesday, November 10 at 7:30. And a few announcements to make tonight, and the first is to remind everybody that this weekend is Halloween, and our Ragamuffin Parade is taking place as usual on Bedford Road with the lineup at 10:30 at Bedford Road School. The parade kicks off at 11 and makes its way down to Memorial Plaza, where there will be festivities. The farm market will be in operation, albeit with a little bit less parking, but hopefully more patrons and patrons dressed in unusual ways. Anybody who is in town that day should get themselves over to tinagambino.org and sign up for the Tina Gambino Memorial 5K Walk and Run, which is also taking place in downtown Pleasantville. That takes place on the morning of October 31, and we encourage everybody to support that uniquely Pleasantville charitable activity. Important announcement, and that is that we are being pressed by the state to enforce the requirement that people not commingle branches with leaves. People have been in the habit of putting a lot of twigs and branches in leaf piles in the street, and we end up picking them up together. We are no longer going to be able to take leaves to the compost facility if they have branches, and so if there are branches in your leaf piles, we won't pick them up. So have I got that right, Patty?
That's right, and we'll get some other notices out.
Right.
But
So
we have to just ask people now, since we're in the throes of leaf season, to remind them and their contractors, because I know a lot of people are just doing yard work and pushing everything out to the curb. We'll pick up the brush, but it can't be commingled. We will get it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. It made me think that we're supposed to get a storm on Wednesday with a
I
lot
know.
of rain. So the basins, again, we got
Leaves.
any leaves that are.
We'll send out
I know it's
an
gonna be
advisory for
hard.
that. It's supposed to be pretty heavy rain.
A lot of people did it this weekend. And
Okay.
I also wanted to congratulate the Fancher Nickel American Legion Post, which this past Saturday night held their annual chili dinner. A big turnout, I think a big success, and a fundraiser that will help support not only the Legion's activities in Pleasantville, but also the Legion's activities that support the needs of veterans at the Montrose home. So a great night, and congratulations to Scott Elliott, Commander, and the cast of characters, which is a big cast of characters that assist in putting on the annual chili dinner. Anybody else have other announcements to make?
No.
All right. The first event of our evening is a presentation of our fiscal 2014-2015 audit report. Folks at O'Connor, Davies, Munns & Dobbins. Do we get to still call you that? Yes.
It's really O'Connor Davies.
All right.
Thank you. You dropped a few.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Rob. Mayor, we have Rob Danielle here tonight.
Thank you.
From O'Connor Davies, and we also have our village treasurer, Mary Schwartz, and our deputy treasurer, Noreen Regan. Oh, I like this. This is new.
Yeah, this is
The new executive summary report. We got the fat report last week.
Very nice.
Welcome, Rob.
All right. Thank you for having me. All right. Before I get into the numbers, I just wanted to I just wanted to thank the entire business office, Patty, Mary, Noreen, for their professionalism, their audit readiness, and really sticking to the timetable that we both agreed to back in May and June of this year. Excuse me. The audit process began back in June, where we sent in a team to do some preliminary work We do what we call transaction testing or walkthroughs. We look at your real property tax collections, your payroll, your cash receipts and bidding process, as well as your claims. We had a team come back at the end of July to perform the actual audit and our substantive testing. We had a draft. We reviewed a draft with management towards the beginning of August. Management was able to prepare an MD&A, the management's discussion and analysis. The report went through our quality review process, and we were able to issue a final report on August 20th of this year. And we're concluding tonight with a public presentation. Also in between, we also came here with the team to perform the audit of the Justice Court. We've also issued a separate report on the Justice Court. And we also audit the Pleasantville Community TV, which is a component unit of the village. We also issue a separate report for the TV, but those financial statements are also included in the village report. Before I get into the numbers, page 2 of the PowerPoint, I'll put together a little agenda. Very quickly, I'm going to just go through briefly discuss what our responsibilities are as external auditors, the responsibilities of management, and what we call TCWG, those charged with governance. We'll discuss the various funds that the village operates. We'll go through an overview of the audit results, specifically the auditor's opinion. We'll touch upon some financial statement highlights, mostly in your general fund. And I've included Exhibit A and B, which are certain required communications that we've discussed with management. I'm not sure we need to hit every point, but we'll discuss those as well. So on page 3 of the PowerPoint, basically our responsibility is to form and express an opinion about whether your financial statements are presented fairly in conformity with what we call accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. We plan to perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatement, whether caused by fraud or error. During the entire audit process, we are required to develop and communicate in writing any deficiencies in internal controls that we consider to be material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. I'm happy to report that there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. We did have a couple of comments that we reviewed those with management. We advise management of the appropriateness of accounting policies and their application, and they appear appropriate for the village. And we're required to communicate any fraud or illegal acts that were noted during the course of our audit. However, our audit cannot be relied upon to identify all instances of fraud or illegal acts, and there were no suspicions or allegations of fraud that were noted. Very quickly on page 4, management is responsible, again, for selecting and using the appropriate accounting policies and to present the financial statements, again, in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And because we assist management in developing those financial statements, we make sure that those are appropriate and in accordance with GAAP. And also, really, management is responsible for providing us with all the financial records so that we can complete the audit. Again, those charged with governance or the board are responsible for communicating with us, the auditors, to oversee the entire audit process, and together, management and those charged with governance are responsible for setting the tone at the top and designing and implementing policies and internal controls to prevent and detect fraud. Page 5, as most of you are aware, the accounts of the village are organized and operated on the basis of funds. Fund accounting segregates funds according to their intended purpose. The village operates essentially 8 funds. A general fund, which is the main operating account of the village. We'll spend a few minutes on the general fund. A water fund, a debt service fund, a capital projects fund, a pool fund, a refuse fund, a special purpose fund, and an agency fund. Page 6 is an overview of the audit results, and for those of you that have a financial statement, if you turn to the page after the table of contents, you'll see our independent auditor's report. These 2 pages are what we opine on. As auditors, our main function is to form an opinion on the financial statements taken as a whole. With that said, we've issued an unmodified opinion. An unmodified opinion is the highest level of opinion that an entity can receive, and it basically states that the financial statements present fairly the financial position of the village at May 31st, 2015, once again in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. It indicates that you received a clean opinion. Page 7, 8, and 9 is a summary of the general fund. Again, for those of you that have a financial statement, the details are found on page 48 and 49. But I'll start on page 7 of the PowerPoint. You'll see 4 columns there: an original budget, a final budget, an actual, and a variance with the final budget. Original budget is what the Board of Trustees approved back in the spring of 2014. As you can see, your aggregate revenues amounted to just under $13.5 million, mostly made up of your real property taxes, which are approximately 3/4 of your budget, or 75%, with the balance coming from sales tax distributions as well as certain departmental income. Your total expenditures amounted to just under $12.4 million. You had excess of revenues of $1 million, but also included in your original budget are certain other financing sources and uses. Most lease transfers out to the debt service fund to cover your principal and interest payments. You come down to the net change in fund balance, the bracketed $150,000, and that represents what the village used from its own funds, from its own fund balance, to balance the budget and provide a form of property tax relief. The final budget on the revenue side was not amended. It was amended slightly. As you can see, there were certain amounts appropriated from fund balance to cover certain expenditures. And again, you come down to that net change in fund balance, and now that $150,000 was driven up to $745,000. So if everything went according to plan, you would have anticipated using $745,000 of your own funds to balance the budget. You come to the third column, which is your actual results. As you can see, your actual revenues came in at $13.8 million, a favorable variance of $356,000 as compared to your final budget, roughly about 2.5% of your budget. On the expense side, your actual expenditures came in at $12.2 million. Once again, a positive variance of about $500,000 as compared to your final budget, roughly about 4% of your budget. You have some transfers in and transfers out. You come down again to that net change in fund balance. So the general fund actually operated at a surplus of $117,000 for the year. You take that and add it to your beginning fund balance of $3.6 million. You end the year with just under $3.8 million. But it's important to note, again, that net change in fund balance. Again, from your original budget, from your original plan, you anticipated using $150,000 of your own funds to balance the budget. That was driven upwards to close to $750,000 in your final budget. But again, the general fund operated at a surplus of $117,000. So from a budgetary standpoint, you anticipated using the $745,000. Not only did you not need to utilize it, but you generated $117,000 of income. So that swing from a negative $745,000 to a positive $117,000 represents a budgetary savings of $862,000, roughly 6% of your budget. As I mentioned, you end the year with $3.8 million in fund balance. If you turn to page 8 of the PowerPoint, you will see general fund balance sheet, if you will, as of May 31st, 2015, with the comparative 2014. And you'll see that $3.8 million in fund balance at the bottom of the page. If we go to your total assets, you can see your total assets are up about $250,000, $260,000 from 2014, mainly in the area of cash and equivalents. Your cash is up about $250,000. Your liabilities are pretty consistent with 2014. They're actually up about $150,000. And then we come to your balancing number, your fund balance, the $3.8 million. The fund balance is broken down into 4 buckets, if you will. What we call non-spendable fund balance, that $23,800 represents your prepaid expenditure number in the asset section. And what that really is you've prepaid certain bills, the cash has gone out the door, the expense hasn't been recognized. That expense will be recognized in 2016. It would come from that pool of funds and would have no effect on your unassigned fund balance. The village also has set aside monies in a restricted fund balance, and that's for future capital projects. As you can see, that didn't change much. There was some interest added to that restricted fund balance from 2014. Another important aspect is your assigned fund balance, the $525,000. That's what the village is using to balance the current budget year and the 2016 budget, and once again, provide a form of property tax relief. And then your unassigned fund balance is just under $3.1 million. We compare the unassigned fund balance to your 2016 adopted budget of about $14.67 million. It's roughly about 21%. So it's a very healthy fund balance to be in. Page 9 is just what I described. The first column there is your general fund breakout of the components of fund balance. So I'm just going to skip through that. Page 10 is certain financial statement highlights of the other funds. Again, you also operate a water fund, and for those of you with the financial statement, that is found on page 57 and 58. Your water fund revenues are derived from water billings, which are categorized in our report as departmental income. Although the water fund did have a surplus or increase in revenues over expenditures of $102,000, there was a decrease in metered water sales due to a decrease in consumption. That was offset with some federal and state aid that was received in the current year from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. So that federal and state aid is probably a one-time event, so probably don't expect to see that next year. Your debt service fund is found on page 63 and 64. The debt service fund also showed a surplus or a net change in fund balance, $274,000 in 2015. The village did refund certain bonds in 2015, and they were able to reduce its total debt service payments over 12 years by approximately $413,000. The debt service fund fund balance is at $435,000 at May 31st, 2015, of which the village has designated about $153,000 to be used in 2016. The capital projects fund, again, page 67, shows the village's current active capital projects. There's probably a dozen or so capital projects ongoing. Although the capital projects fund does reflect a deficit of $1.2 million, it is financed with bond anticipation notes of $1.8 million. As those bond anticipation notes are paid down, that'll be recognized as revenue, and that deficit will go away. It's important to note that those bond anticipation notes that were issued for the $1.8 million are 1% interest, which is historically low, but obviously it goes with the current times. Your pool fund, again, very quickly, page 69 and page 70, reflected income of $8,000. Revenues were consistent with the prior year. However, expenses were lower due to the need for, there was not a need for equipment purchases like in 2014, and there was certain repairs and maintenance done in the prior year that didn't occur in the current year. And also your refuse fund, which is found on page 72. Again, increase in revenues over expenditures are consistent with 2014. The fund did earn $68,000 and bringing its total fund balance to $328,000. The last piece I just want to point out is I like to go through your bonds payable to maturity, or your debt service, if you will. If you turn to page 37 of the financial statements, you can see that your bonds payable to maturity are just over $13.3 million. And on page 38, we describe the actual bonds, the year of issue, their final maturity, and the interest rates. The bottom of page 38, we are required to report your payments to maturity over the next 5 years and then in increments of 5 years. And if you go to the 2016 or next year's column, you can see that your debt service requirements are about $2.4 million next year. If you break that down by the funds that service those debt service payments, you look at your general fund. General fund has a debt service requirement of about $1.4 million on its budget of $14.7 million. So roughly 9.5% of the general fund budget is to pay down debt service in 2016. Same thing with the water fund. The water fund's debt service requirements are about $963,000 on a $3.8 million budget, roughly about 25%. And then there's an allocation to the refuse fund, about $17,000 on a $1 million budget, roughly just under 2%. And your pool fund, $68,000 on a $314,000 budget, roughly 22%. So that's important to know. I mean, the main area there is your general fund, which 9.5 isn't a significant number, but it should be pointed out. And then Exhibit A and B are certain required communications. Page 14, quickly, we went over our planned scope and timing of the audit. That was all documented in our engagement letter that we received at the beginning of the audit process. Again, included in the notes to the financials are certain, actually note 1 to the financial statements, there are significant accounting policies, and those policies have not changed from 2014. There's certain estimates that are made during the year. We review those estimates, and we determine that they are reasonable in relation to the financial statements as a whole. On page 16, the financial statements have very detailed financial statement disclosures and involve judgments. Those we believe that those statements are consistent and clear. There was no difficulties encountered in dealing with management. There was no disagreements with management. We also request that we get certain representations in writing from management, which was done in a separate letter, again dated the same day as our audit report, August 20th. We generally discuss some business conditions that may affect the village going forward. Again, none of those matters discussed or responses were a condition to us being retained as auditors, and we are independent with respect to the village in accordance with professional standards. We're required, as I said before, we're required to attach to our management letter any corrected or uncorrected misstatements. Uncorrected misstatements are items that we may pass on that we feel are not material to the statements. There were none here at the village. Any entry, and I believe there was 1 or 2 that we proposed, were recorded by management, and those are attached to your management letter. Page 20 refers to the management letter. Again, our communication control matters is a byproduct of the audit process, and that's often referred to as our management letter. As I mentioned before, we didn't identify any deficiencies that we categorize as material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. There was a couple of comments, and those were discussed with management. That's really it. Again, in closing, the village is financially sound and I believe prepared to meet future challenges. There are effective internal controls in the business office. Again, although the village depends on its real property taxes, which account again for 3/4 of the budget of its revenue, it has been able to weather the current economic conditions with minimal impact on services while still, remaining within a 2% tax cap. And then just page 21, there is a new GASB pronouncement that will be in effect in 2016, which accounting and financial reporting for pensions. Again, it doesn't change your budget process. You will still get a bill from New York State based on salaries and tier level. However, your proportionate share, and right now there's a small liability. I think the system is funded 97%. So your proportionate share will have to be recorded as a liability in what we call
Our proportionate share of the 3% that's unfunded?
correct, which is like $165 billion.
And is that accessible?
Oh, no.
But
Is that-
that'll be provided
And is,
from
but, I mean,
the
is that,
state.
can the state demand that all the communities kick in to bring the pension plan to 100% funding?
They'll adjust your rates
Yeah.
on an annual basis to get you there, but we audit schools, and the teachers' retirement system is overfunded. It's funded 111%.
So they're going to send their money back.
Well, no, I mean, it's all based on investment returns and things like that, but they'll adjust your contribution rates.
It's hocus pocus.
To get
Well,
to that.
It's a
it's
shell
just
game.
another nail in the coffin of villages. That's what it is.
It's all municipalities, and it's like your OPEB, where
Yeah,
you have to
but-
record the liability, but there's nothing you can do about it.
Kind of like
There's no
questions.
funding mechanism.
So I have a question
Sure.
on this, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
The new OPEB reporting and according to the new GASB, where we have to report it in the 2017 budget, is that right? Is that, or
believe
we're not
it's-
reporting it in the next budget?
I think it's 2018, but it doesn't
18?
affect your budget process.
Okay, but no, but we have to report it.
Correct.
And where do we report it? Where does that come in our budget? I mean, like, that's a line. Where do we put that when it doesn't,
Well, no,
it has no impact
it's
apparently
a
on the
note to the
budget?
financial
It's a note.
statements.
It's a note
It's-
disclosure. New York State has no funding mechanism for
There-
OPEB.
So we don't need to bring it into our
You do have a
financials?
piece in the general fund which you pay as you go.
Right, no, but they're requiring us.
Some people don't pay it as they go, but we have.
Right, but they're requiring us to report it as part of our budget. And so I believe that's what the GASB 75 or whatever whatever we're up to in Gatsby.
Yeah.
But, I believe they said that we have to report it as part of our budget. I just don't know how you report that and what kind of, if it has no impact on the budget, where is it a?
It's a disclosure. It's not an allocation. We have to make no appropriation for it. That's what you're asking. Do we need to put money?
Appropriation.
Right.
I think it goes
Yeah.
on financial statements. but
It's in the
not-
front. In the front, if you look on page 10, you'll see a statement in that position.
Okay.
This really, what it does is we take your fund level financial statements and convert them to what we call full accrual.
Okay.
So just to give you an example, on an annual basis, you budget your principal and interest, but nowhere in your funds do you show
that.
the $13 million. This statement shows the $13 million, this page, on page 10. So
Okay.
we convert your fund level to full accrual, and that's the same thing with the OPEB.
So
Again,
it would be our statement of net position.
Correct.
That's okay.
and it's in this, towards the middle bottom of the page, where it says doing more than 1 year, that $19 million, about $6.7 million is your current OPEB that's in that
Okay.
number.
All right.
So it's not in the operating budget.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
I thought that is what I read
Yeah.
when they
No,
from the state controller's office, and then when I read your I think this is addendum B, it does state that it has to be now reported as
In your entity-wide, what we call.
yes,
Right.
And
right.
it's an accrual basis versus a cash basis. Right?
Correct.
So the operating budget is a cash statement, right?
Rob, does the explication of our capital assets, land, construction in progress, buildings, machinery, infrastructure, actually mean anything? I mean, does it provide useful information?
They do. What happens, and again, not to give you accounting, but in your capital fund, when you pay for an improvement, it's expensed. In the real world, you
Right.
would capitalize it and depreciate it over
Right.
life. And that's what that's what we do. We take your,
So is it fair to say that those numbers are, in the parallel of the profit-making world, some sort of a snapshot of the state of the investment in the capital infrastructure?
correct, and the useful life is an estimate.
Well, that's
You're
right.
going to give a piece of equipment a 10-year life.
But I mean, this theoretically includes sewers and water
Every
pipes
year
and
infrastructure.
sidewalks,
Right.
Correct.
Which you're
all of which
supposed
are
to-
a pretty loosey-goosey interpretation, right?
It was done,
Yeah.
several years back.
Yeah. Well, also it's unlike a truck, which has a more definable lifespan.
Yes.
So, could you comment on the scale of our fund balance and the scale of our relative indebtedness relative to averages for communities of our sort and relative to any theoretical ideal?
Sure. In most villages that we see with this budget size, their fund balance is anywhere from 10 to 15%, maybe a little higher, 18%. So you're over that. You're on the higher end, which is a good place to be. Your debt service may be a little high. We look at maybe 5, 6, 7%. And I'm just commenting on the general fund. You're probably at about 9%. So not so drastic, but on the higher end as well on the debt service side.
Right. With some debt retirement likely to come soon.
Right.
Although the potential obviously to roll in new debt as we try to maintain a safe infrastructure. So, of course, one of the, not that this is your problem, but the tax cap environment
Right.
provides a mighty incentive for many communities to kick the can down the road and not do what ought to be done.
Right.
Not to behave the way we would all behave with our own personal assets.
Right.
So, also wanted to be clear that the village has never, quote, amortized, in other words, borrowed for its annual pension contribution,
Correct.
which is a current year expense,
Right.
and we've always paid it despite the pain associated with it in some years. That's starting to ease a little, but I throw that out there also just to make clear that not everybody has taken that approach, and some communities had no choice, but that is worth the community being aware of.
Right. And also, just to add on page 38, with the bonds that were refunded, you could see that your debt service goes down.
Right.
Which is, you usually see it going the other way. So, I mean, that's a positive that you see down the road. Obviously, as you mentioned, you may borrow more, but the way it looks as of May 31st, I mean,
Are your years 2021 through 2025 and 2026 through 2030, those are all estimates?
No, those are actual based on the amortization schedules.
So we have
Current
we're paying down debt, and then we have.
But those are
newer
5
debt.
years. Those are instead of doing it, we're required to report 5 individual years and then in groups of 5 years. So if you
I
look,
understand, but in 2020, we're figuring we're going to have, $990,000 in debt service, and for 5 years thereafter, it's at $3.9 million. I don't know. I'm not understanding where that.
Divided by 5, though.
What's that?
Divided
That's-
by
Not an
5.
that's
annual.
I
5 years.
understand,
Yeah.
but it's yeah. All right.
Well,
It's 5. It's
it's
5
about
years.
800,
Okay.
yeah, either.
right, meaning the debt service will be lower in those
Going
5
down.
years.
Got it. Okay. I understand now. It's not per year. It's for 5 years.
Right.
Correct.
Got it.
And does your role as an auditor allow you to reach into the future and tell us what's going to happen with interest rates?
If I could do that, I wouldn't
Come
be
on,
here.
for all we
Wouldn't be
pay
sitting
you,
here.
can't you
How's
give
that
us a little
yield
something?
curve, Rob?
I wish I could.
I want to note for the record that Mary's investment strategy netted $611 more than she anticipated in revenue last year. So, thank you, Mary.
As well as hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings in refunding over a long period of time.
Oh, absolutely.
So winning on both ends of the equation. Thank you for that, Mary.
On that interest rate question, just briefly, you mentioned that the times we're in now with the 1%. So the actuarial assumptions of 4.5 IRR and the 3% inflation, do they come from you guys, or
No,
is
those
that
are
a standard?
That's your actuary.
And is that, how often are those updated?
I think we do them every 2 years, if not annually.
The OPEB.
So will
Right.
they roll again this coming year for 16 to 17?
We do it in full every 3 years, then we have interim in between.
Because the 3%, I mean, first off, the 4.5 is a little off, and the 3 is certainly off. And then following on that, extrapolating forward where you're anticipating the costs rising by anywhere between 9.5% in 2015 to 5% in 2024. Where do those come from?
I'm sorry, from
This is on page 40.
those
the
are
OPEB?
also from the actuary.
And are those updated on the same 2-year schedule?
Yes.
Do we know why they decline like that?
Well, was the state controller said he's trying to pull it back.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what the rationale is to bring it from 9 to 5 over.
Does he have to have any rationale? I don't know.
I mean, he's doing the right thing.
I know
that's
he's
for
doing
sure.
the right thing. I'm just curious what brings it from 9.5 this year to 5 even in 10 years. It's okay.
No, it's a
rhetorical.
good question, but back in 2007, what was it, 15?
Yeah. It's going the right way.
And then
I
there was a
understand
24 in there somewhere. I remember.
I think they look at your labor contracts too to see what
that. So
you're
maybe
giving
that's
out as
scaling
you
in
go on.
the
So
tier 1, tier 2.
Well, it was the objective of the state controller to pull it back to this rate of 8.5. I think he was trying to get to. Wasn't that what he was trying to do
Well,
over the years from?
these aren't pension, these are health.
This is
That's
post-retirement
how-
benefits and
right.
health.
It's
I can tell you the pension they're using 7%,
7%. Right.
On cost?
Yeah.
On cost. Okay. And I also just wanted to make a note that to earn a unmodified opinion is quite accomplishment for you guys. So
Well
hats
done.
off. That is
Well
that
done.
is not easy to get. And if I understood you right, there were no material journal entries and all that sort of stuff. So that's hats off, girl.
Thank you. We appreciate that. I can tell you that, and I'll say it unequivocally, we have the
Yeah.
most competent finance department
Yeah.
in Westchester County sitting right here.
Good job.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Well done,
It's,
Dave.
all right, Rob, I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Job well done.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
But I'll talk to you back to
We, can you give us, perhaps you already have given us this summary piece in a PDF also so that we can post that as well as a PDF of the entire audit up on the web?
I put the whole audit on
Right.
already, but if you can send that,
Yeah,
that's
it'd be
great.
worth just a
Yeah,
the overview
it's a nice
piece.
recap.
Not everybody wants to get into the weeds, so, and that said, they're invited to. So pleasantville-ny.gov, you can go to our website and pull down the entire audit, and within a few days, the summary provided by Rob. So thank you, sir, much appreciated.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks,
Thank
Rob.
you.
Thanks, Rob.
Ladies, we're good.
I wanted to mention that in work session, before we began our regular session, we met with some folks from Echo Enterprises, which is a Westchester-based contractor that has won a contract with the New York State Department of Transportation, and they will be in the process of replacing 2 bridges on the Sawmill Parkway. It may not be apparent as you drive under the bridges that go under Manville Road and then at Pleasantville Road, but those sections of the parkway are actually on low bridges that cross the Sawmill Parkway. So the big decorative bridges that you go under are not being touched. It's the bridges that hold up the roadway, which are going to be completely rebuilt over a period of roughly 9 months, I guess. Patty, am I right?
That's right.
In the year 2016. So they came to us tonight, not only to describe the project, which we've had some advance notice of over the last year, but also to raise the possibility with us that we might allow them a detour at certain points in the day, mostly in the evening, to detour traffic off the southbound parkway into the village to allow them to close both lanes in the southbound direction. So that will take some further discussion, but I think it likely that we will end up with a result where for about a 9-month period, there are some lane closings on the Sawmill, and at night on weekdays on some periods of time, the southbound lane may be closed and traffic diverted on Grand Street off towards Memorial Plaza. There will be a 21-day period that's at the moment scheduled to be in the summer of 2016, when all traffic will be blocked on Grand Street on both sides. That is, you will not be able to enter or leave the parkway from Pleasant Avenue at Grand Street or from the Grand Street side of the village near Memorial Plaza, and pedestrian access will be completely blocked for 21 days as well. So there will be certainly some hardships for everybody to endure, and particularly the neighbors who live near that project. A lot of the work will happen at night. There certainly will be some noise. I think all of us were impressed by the contractor's willingness to work with us, and the contractor has also expressed a willingness to make some improvements that we would like to see happen, including much better pedestrian conditions over on the Pleasant Avenue side of Grant Street in exchange for the opportunity to have some detours through the village. So a fruitful discussion. A lot of the neighbors from the Pleasant Avenue area were here, and we'll continue that discussion with them. But the piece of it that's an important take-home for everybody is that for a big chunk of the year 2016, there will be lane closings and at some occasions detours on the Sawmill, both north and south. So it certainly will be a challenging time, but in the end, an improvement in the infrastructure. So more on that as it develops, but everybody should be aware that that's on the radar screen. Get back to our regular meeting here. Any comments from the public on any subject? Again, our call-in number is 769-1677. Failing that, to the resolution, Steve, 181.
Resolved that pre-check register dated October 26, 2015, covering pre-check numbers 81772 through 81855 has been reviewed, and they are hereby approved as listed below. From the general fund, the special purpose fund, the water fund, the refuse fund, and the pool fund for a total of $340,469.82.
Is there a second?
Second?
Comments or questions on the check register?
I did. There was something for Cone about the elevator. What was it?
It's a maintenance agreement. Coney repairs and maintains our elevator. So we have a service contract, it's several $1,000s a year, but it requires several periodic maintenance things to be done. So I think we probably got hit this last bill period for, I don't know how much it was.
It was $4,900.
Yeah, that's
plus another. There were 2 payments, so that's what I was trying to figure out. Okay.
That's our elevator contract.
And the other question I have, I mean, it was a nominal amount, but when we pay a court interpreter, where does that get reimbursed? Is that just part of the fees?
It's our expense.
Okay. Just wondered. I don't remember seeing that.
It's rare.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And we have to provide that.
We do.
I thought so, but I just wanted to see.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Mindy.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby accepts an anonymous donation in the amount of $220 towards Clinton Street Senior Programs.
Is there a second?
Second.
Another in a continuing stream of generous donations to the Clinton Street Center a testament to the good work they do. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
approved. Colleen, 183.
Computer is like frozen. Can I read it? Thank you. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the mayor to sign a mutual aid and rapid response plan with Westchester County for the period of July 31, 2015 through July 30, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Patty, you want to describe the goings-on with this mutual aid rapid response plan?
Yeah, this is an agreement that the Village of Pleasantville and I think just about every police agency in the county has participated in over the years. This is a renewal of a term that's about to expire. There may be some additional conditions, but essentially it's an agreement whereby if we request mutual aid, we would have to reimburse any other town or village that responds to us with respect to mutual aid. We would not have to reimburse the county. We would only reimburse the county if in fact they incurred any injuries or any claims as a result of responding on our behalf. And conversely, if we respond on behalf of another municipality's request to provide services, we would be reimbursed for those services as well.
So does each community actually write a check back and forth, or do you reconcile it at the end of the year, or how do you do that?
There's procedures in general municipal law on how to put those claims in, but typically they're resolved within a certain window of time after the
After the
incident.
event, so it's an ongoing
Correct.
reimbursement.
Because if we're involved, we could be involved down the road with a court procedure. It depends on what the incident is. So it may actually have a long tail to it.
Right.
But we're entitled to reimbursement
Okay.
if we participate, which I certainly recommend we do, and so does Chief
I
Love.
expect we do. When you're talking about Mount
Correct.
Pleasant, you might be talking about Briarcliff or whatever. I mean, it's right
Yes.
here. Right, sure.
And the mutual aid comes back to us as well. So, any further comments? All in favor? Aye. Motion approved. Joe.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees has reviewed the minutes of the meeting held on Monday, October 12, 2015, and they are hereby approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments or corrections to the minutes? All in favor? Aye. Motion approved. That is the last of our resolutions on tonight's agenda. Did anyone have any new business? Any further announcements? All right. With that, let me remind everybody this weekend, Halloween is the 31st, the Ragamuffin Parade, as well as the run walk for the Tina Gambino Foundation, which takes place before the parade. Is there a motion to adjourn?
You should remind everybody about the branches again. Just
Oh, go for it.
Well, just remember that we can't accept the branches anymore in the leaf piles on the street. That's coming down from the state, I think you said, right?
It is. I mean, that rule has always existed, but we've been
Well, now we have to.
cooperative.
Right. So please try to not put branches in your leaf piles because we will not pick them up.
Correct. You got to separate branches and brush from leaves. All right, motion to adjourn.
Wait,
Second.
wait.
You, did you
She's
want to?
raising her hand.
Oh,
I was invited to this meeting
Yes.
to be appointed to the...
we're going to get you
Oh, okay.
right after the regular meeting. I
have to
promise.
we have to
We
interview
haven't
you
forgotten
first.
you.
Oh,
Right.
okay, great.
Yeah, we haven't forgotten you. We're not leaving. A motion to adjourn the regular session
So moved.
and to go into executive session after an interview for the CIC appointment on the subject of real estate.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Aye.
And Mayor, the Foodchester contract.
Yes, the executive session is regarding a real estate matter as well as the Foodchester contract.
So we're going to talk to Alan first.
Thank you all. Good night. See you in 2 weeks.